Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Zimbabwe's constitutional amendment number 3 continues to occupy the people of Zimbabwe's minds. Here is a video that has been taking the rounds in which the individual is speaking from the perspective of what the ruling elite want out of this constitutional amendment.
People make mistake of extension of President E.D. Mnangagwa's term. There is nowhere in the Constitution of Zimbabwe where it retained President E.D. Mnangagwa. In the Constitution, it speaks about the president. So whoever becomes the president, and let me tell you this, rest assured, hakuna munhu anoda kuita president muZimbabwe anorambirana kusvika 7. Wese achada, nyange mukasangana naye achita kunge asingadi, hakuna munhu asiri kuda kuzotongawo for 7 years kana apinda. Hakuna MP 7 years, hakuna. So wese wamuri kuziya roenda president kana achazoda ari kutsigira biwiri. Kunyange pakamera akati haasi kuda, asi mumwoyo make akamuka apa. Umwe pa 9, umwe pa 10. Vamwe vatinoziya isu vanogona kutozobvisa term limit yacho. Vamwe vatinotoziya isusu vakatomborana mapata asina makonseni vanogona kutozoti hakusina pane mashaulo.
The tragedy is that what he's saying is true. We are looking at here at a situation where ZANU-PF wants this amendment to be decided on by the sitting MPs, senators, councillors, and of course, Mnangagwa himself alone. Of course, they would want to extend their term. But those who are outside, who are not in power, would want fresh elections. I think what people should appreciate about a constitution is that it's not written to suit those who are in power or even aspiring to be in power. It's written with a view for bigger picture. What is good for the nation? Anyone who looks at this constitutional amendment can tell you now with no doubt at all that it's not good for the nation. Welcome to the program, Ben.
Good day to you and good day to our viewers. Thank you for joining us. You know, I think we spoke about this to say once you get this whole ball rolling where individuals can simply just change their time in public office, you have just opened Pandora's box. The next guy will want to say, you know, look, my project is going to be up until 2050. And there will be no way of stopping him because, you know, it's been done. So I have to agree to say, you know, it's unfortunate what he's saying is true, especially when you look at the leadership that we have, you know, where we find even when organizations like SADC and AU, EU, and many big organizations come out openly and publicly and condemn, illegal processes that we ourselves have conducted. Like, for example, our past elections, they have been condemned that they are illegal and they are flawed. But because of greed, you have seen even the opposition are quick to get sworn in and take up positions. So really, we really don't have much of a choice now, because we have an opposition that is very much willing and participate, to participate in all these whole shenanigans. And again, unfortunately, a lot of people do not actually even understand that the opposition is just, in this here as much as SANU PF themselves.
Well, one of the things that we must say from the outside is that Mnangagwa has never been elected by the people of Zimbabwe in a free, fair, and credible election. That should be stated in no uncertain terms. So we find ourselves in this situation where somebody who got into power in 2017 on the cocktails of a military coup rigged the 2018 elections, rigged the 2023 elections, is now seeking to impose himself beyond the two-term limits. This speaks volumes to the problem we have in Zimbabwe, where those in power and authority are only interested in staying in power at all costs. They're prepared to rig the elections. They're even prepared to kill. We have said on this platform and reminded the listeners out there that the Kukura-Wundi massacre was about power. ZANU-PF wanted to create a de facto one-party state, and so they wanted to force PF-SAPO to give up its existence as an independent party because they constituted the most serious threat to ZANU-PF. And even after the signing of the Unity Accords, the regime was ruthless in making sure that any other opposition was silenced. The most dramatic events is the 2008 elections, where Mnangagwa and now VP Chiwenga were the ones who orchestrated the Operation Mavotera, where they sought to punish the people of Zimbabwe for having rejected the regime in that 2008 elections. And so if you look at that history, then you begin to understand that all the constitutional amendments that have been taking place in Zimbabwe ever since our independence, most of this amendment number 3 has to do with retaining power at all costs. This is what the leaders themselves want. It is not what the people want. That is a recurring theme with our political system.
I think it is important to actually note that ever since independence, Zimbabwe has never had any constitutional change and handover of power. And it is very worrying when you see, the people in ZANU PF and in the opposition that would stand up and support, such a thing. That the only time where we could now actually see, somebody move out and somebody come in, though the election process itself is flawed, but just that smooth transition of power, it might not never ever happen in Zimbabwe, because we've got politicians that are so greedy, that are so selfish, they will do anything to secure their stay in power. And every time when you even speak about even the likes of, the late Changirai, the late Mugabe, they were all in the same basket. They all did not want to leave power, despite one had old age and the other one was very, very sick. They held on until the very, very bitter end. In fact, Mugabe, after serving all those years in power, was very, very bitter to have left. Right now, we find that the opposition members that are outside this whole bracket of the amendment are bitter because they are not in it. Had they been in it, I am pretty sure they would have agreed to it. We have seen ZANU PF and MDC-CCC agree, connive, and do things together. They were together in the GNU. And the primary purpose of the GNU was to implement reforms. And because they knew that the reforms would get them both out of office, they colluded together and then hushed it all aside and brushed it aside. SADC kept on knocking at the door to tell them, what about the reforms? What about the reforms? And it was Tsvangirai who went and reported to Mugabe that SADC is worrying me. Those are truths. Those are historical facts. Yet we, the people, have chosen to paint a different, picture. No, we can't say that about our dearest friend. But the truth be told, he let the nation down. The same opposition we are seeing today have let the nation down. The likes of Tendai Biti would say now they would want to go and live in the mountains. But when they were in the offices of power, in the Minister of Finance, they did not implement any reform whatsoever. And a lot of people believe that foolishness. It scares me how the people of Zimbabwe can be so incredibly naive at times.
My last remark is I would like to reinstate what I've said before, that this constitutional amendment number 3 seeks to give even more dictatorial powers to the ruling elite. The biggest mistake some people out there are making is believing that if they fight to stop this constitutional amendment going through, they will restore a democratic Zimbabwe. This caption I've got on the screen there says it all. 2 more years of this if you change the constitution. As if to say, if you stop the constitution, this constitutional amendment going through, you suddenly have better roads, better services, good governance. That is far from the truth. What the people of Zimbabwe must understand is that ZANU-PF is playing dirty tricks with them. The present political system gives a lot of dictatorial powers to ZANU-PF. And it doesn't want the people to focus on that problem. So what the regime has done is propose amending the constitution to give themselves even more powers. They knew that that would outrage the people. And some of the people now are seeing the present system as a bed of roses compared to what will come if the amendment goes through. When in reality, the present system is dysfunctional. This is why ZANU-PF has been able to rig elections and stay in power these last 46 years. Being conned into believing that the present system is better is the equivalent of a mouse being told to make a choice between a black mamba or a cobra. The truth of the matter is that is a false choice, because that mouse knows a bite from either snake will kill it. The mouse will instinctively choose to live. We should reject the constitutional amendment and also the present system, and not pretend that picking one is better than picking the other, because both of them are deadly to the country. Many people have asked, if we are not going to fight the amendment, what do you want us to do? Well, we should focus on making sure that the democratic changes that Tendai Biti and the MDC CCC were supposed to implement ever since they were elected these last 26 years are finally implemented. Failure to get the reforms implemented, we should not participate in a political process that we know is flawed. ZANU-PF is thrilled to see that the people of Zimbabwe are engaged with this amendment, because it gives the process legitimacy. At the end of the day, ZANU-PF may not even want this amendment to be passed. Mnangagwa himself is on record saying that he doesn't want to stay in power beyond 2028. You may actually honor that. But what matters then is the country will be pulled into an election and participate in it without even one token reform implemented since the last rigged elections of 2023. In other words, without reforms, Zimbabwe will still be under a ZANU-PF dictatorship. We will have potholes in our roads. The health service will still be neglected. Our education system has all but collapsed. As long as ZANU-PF dictatorship remains in power, nothing substantial will change. And the choices we are being given right now of either amendment number 3 or the present system is not a choice, it's a false choice, because both of them guarantees a ZANU-PF dictatorship. That is the reality, and people must understand it. Think about it. Thank you very much. Have a good night.